Hey, sports fans out there, welcome to our podcast today. I'm Eric Johnson, Coach EJ, The Brand.
And I'm Coach Aaron Thigpen, The Source. EJ, what do we got going for today?
You know, we have a special person that we're going to collaborate with today and talk a little bit about African Americans and really youth sports, baseball, from youth all the way up to professional baseball. And I think it's going to be a great topic today, Aaron. I'm looking forward to it. We have our friend out there in Florida, John Paul Reed, with Pure Momentum Sports, and been really an innovator out there trying to, help youth out there participate in baseball, especially African Americans. We're in Black History Month, Aaron, and I tell you, man, I'm out there watching these kids playing a tournament last weekend, and it's good to see more young Black people playing baseball, and I like that. So great to have him here today, Aaron. What you got on it, man?
Yeah, I'm glad to have John Paul. He's a listener, and we like to have him as a guest. So I'm glad that he wanted to participate. And he's someone who's in the trenches, and that's what we wanted to do. We didn't want to just have these two old heads up here talking. Someone who's also out there, besides us, doing the good work and working with these kids and seeing the challenges that that these athletes and their parents face, especially those who want to participate in baseball. And so I think we're going to have a real fruitful conversation here. JP, just real quick, tell us a little bit about your organization, where you're located, and some of the things that you're doing with the kids.
We're located in Sanford, Florida, Central Florida, basically, Orlando area, Disney. Everybody knows Disney. We sunny Florida. The weather's good here year round, so training is a way of life down here. You know what I mean? Like it's 90. It was 90 degrees yesterday.
Man,
so
jealous.
What's the weather like where you guys are?
Man, it's like 40s, 50s, cold.
Oh,
hey, any of you guys who know me, once it gets under 70, it's like Arctic as far as I'm concerned.
And that's I think a perception, because you assume all California is warm. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just a misconception.
Yeah, we're in the Bay Area. It's not as Southern Cal.
Yeah, right there by. Yep. I've been there a few times. It does get cold, so yeah, it's 90 degrees here. So it's gonna be pretty much like that until September.
jealous.
Killing me.
But it is also very, very hot and very humid. So
I'll take that.
It's uncomfortable for a little while, but it rains every day, rainy season. So, but as far as us, we're located there, so it makes it easy for us to kind of like create a niche, right? So what we do is we focus on development and exposure for student athletes. One part development, one part exposure, one part mentorship, right? Itself is just kind of like an idea that I've had to kind of a mindset of going at things or approaching things, right? Once you get going, momentum kind of carries itself, but we got to get going, right? And sometimes like when you're in some of these disadvantaged areas, I'm from Mississippi originally, so I can understand kids coming up with less. And sometimes you don't know where to start. You don't know how to begin. You don't have that direction. Just getting going. And then we'll see your effort. And that's one thing I want to stop and say that I appreciate for you guys, because like being a young, African-American entrepreneur, ex-baseball player, all of those things, older guys haven't been as like outgoing. So for you guys to like take the time out to even acknowledge and say, okay, maybe we can share some of our platform, it says a lot about you guys. You get what I'm saying? So I appreciate it. Our company appreciates it. The kids here appreciate it. And I mean that sincerely. So, but that's our focus, man. We operate a student athlete resource center. It's a facility, right? Do different things. We house different specializations, right? We have tutoring. We do like skills development and training, evaluation and assessment. We have some behavioral people that come in. We have different things to offer, and because of it, we decided to now operate as an after-school program. So we're licensed through DCF. So that gives us the ability to go to schools, pick kids up. So we're an after-school program. Most people look at it as a daycare, but we only do school-age kids, and we specialize in athletes. And the whole idea behind it was giving kids the opportunity, and we also do high school kids, advanced training monthlies, your traditional academy stuff, team, But to me, I don't want to talk about that. That's just basic. You know what I mean? I want to talk about like how you take a time where these kids have no interference, 3 to 6. You get them in an environment, you structure it, you get them homework, you get them a snack, and then you get them regimented. They come in, 15, 20 minutes of running, T-work, basketball players get shots up. We even got a football jugs machine. Whatever these kids, we don't cookie cut it, and we don't necessarily try to take on 1 million kids. The goal is for kids in our program to we're a resource. So our goal is to be here with our kids through their matriculation through high school. We want kids that want to play in college, right?
Nice.
The idea is you give us a commitment, and we're going to get you results. You know what I mean? Because we're going to be consistent. We're going to stick to a process. And we've had tremendous success. We've moved kids from Mississippi, where I'm from, to the Florida area, through and now into college. We've done a lot. But the biggest thing is that now we've got a program that kind of like gives kids who necessarily couldn't access the system before from an economic standpoint the opportunity, because we had a certification as a licensed care provider to allow their parents to come in and take access of after-school resources, Medicaid, different programs that we can access, and we figured out a way to access.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because one of the big burning questions is the state of African Americans in baseball is always, everyone looks at the numbers first.
Right.
And you're looking at, hey, participation was maybe 20%, I think, in Major League Baseball. In the 60s, 70s, now it's down to 8%.
Yes, sir.
And it was down, I think, as low as 3 or 4% a few years ago. So actually, from what I understand, we're actually seeing a resurgence. Now, it may not be as much as we'd like, but there is some spark of hey, maybe things are starting to build momentum. Last year there were 4 out of the top 5 draft picks African Americans. So, hopefully that's just not a blip on the radar screen, but it's, maybe the start of a trend. And that's what we want to talk about is what are some of the barriers to participation in this sport that we all love, access, those sorts of things. And that's kind of what we want to, let's open up the discussion with that is, hey, what are some of the obvious barriers, especially for younger athletes who want to get into the sport? And again, it's not just African-American communities, it could be any community.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of it, I think, and I guess I'm going to tip my hand here, has to do with the economics of the sport.
It does. Point blank, you said it, Aaron. It's economics all day. And I don't care what anybody says. It's access based on money. As we know in travel baseball, it's all about access and money. And I think here in the Bay Area, there are programs that are trying to open it up to all minorities that don't have access, and I could throw out 1,000 names out there. I think one right now, Aaron, you and I know, is Tyson Ross.
Yeah.
Okay. And what he's doing at Loyal to the Soil. And what he's trying to do is bring access, ability to get training, come for a day or two and have some instruction, appreciate the game, get the mentorship. We need to bring that to the forefront. And the whole thing I see is that there's not enough Black coaches out there. I'm going to tell you, because I'm out there in the trenches. And having Tyson, having top tier backyard boys, some of those guys out there running around, it's good because kids, young kids might already see that and go, hey, I can do that. And that's what we want them to see. I can do that. And hopefully the economics aren't going to stop us from allowing that to happen, whether it's scholarship programs, foundations, et cetera, those need to be accessed by not the best players that are minorities, but players that are above average. I see above average to average players not getting the same opportunities as those high level players. Okay. And I think you need to talk about that a little bit, because that's what deters those players from playing baseball, is that. And I think that's important.
Man, you guys are spot on from my perspective. And I think the first thing you got to look at, Aaron, is what perspective are we gauging it from, right? Like there's a barrier at every perspective. From economic perspective, there's a barrier right there at the flat out dollar per dollar you have to spend out to be a part of it, which is, in my opinion, because it's a thing. It's a skill sport. I mean, you have to learn it. I mean, you can develop the skill over time. I look at it like two ways, right? I'm gonna give it a brief pivot, like how I break the game down. When it comes to development, you have two different mindsets, right? You have the Dominican mindset, right, where we train, we focus on that solely, right? We're not really concerned with the personal development, right? We just want to develop the skill, and then if you have value at a certain age as a player, then we'll teach you this personal stuff, right? Investment strategy. And then you have the American system where we have what I call an evaluation system, meaning we evaluate the problems. We know what's wrong with the players, so they play so many games, but we don't take time to address it. And so what happens is there's a premium put on the ability to address it, right? Mm-hmm. And how you address it and when you address it. So, and then even inside of that, you got guys that train that slow kids down because they want to make money. Like there's a whole lot of, like, it's a web to this, right? So when you're looking at each one of these different things, there's a barrier. There's a barrier there because, hey, be honest, some of our parents, it's 18 hours a weekend. Like, let's look at that. It's 18 hours a weekend. And we used to playing football, and it's one game on a Saturday. And then we got the rest of our time. So just the time, what I've seen is the type of mindset that parents have to navigate it, right? You got to be really, really like, you have to be able to sacrifice as a parent, because your weekends, you're going to be at the ballpark. You know what I mean? But I just think there's so many barriers, but the number one would definitely be economics. Like the fact that it's an extra $300 a month to invest and play the sport. You know what I mean? To even get in. So,
yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, and even just kind of at the base level, you know, I go back to my era where there wasn't formal instruction. You know, your dad bought you a mitt out of a bin at, you know, Thrifty or someplace, you know, Kmart, because it wasn't really sporting goods stores back then. And you put it on your handlebars and you wrote, you know, I remember getting new balls, and you just went out and you played street ball and you played wiffle ball and you played all, you know, some of these other stick ball derivatives of baseball that introduced the sport to kids. And just from a play standpoint. And I think that's where you grab kids, is first make it just play, make it fun. And that's not out there anymore, you know. And again, we've talked about, you know, the lack of parks and recs, at least in California,
structured,
where you used to be able to play a rec league at your local parks and rec. So I think the absence of those sorts of things kind of, you know, the kids don't get as much exposure to it, and they don't get as much of the good exposure to it, because you got to remember, once you start putting a dollar sign on it and you put a uniform on, or it's instruction, then that becomes pressure for a lot of kids. And that doesn't necessarily allow them to kind of organically experience the game and appreciate it, and actually first make it their own.
True. And
then be able to take that skill set, that flash, that flair, and take it to the next level. And so I think that's kind of, you know, if we're talking about just getting, you know, kids exposed, and I think that's the biggest thing first, is get them exposed and engaged. I think that's the first step in helping the lack of participation problem. And from there, as you get more athletes in, then we can talk about exposure and stars and that sort of thing. But again, just kind of going back from, you know, my era, that was kind of how baseball caught me.
Okay. So what I would say to counter that, right? Not to just to be the devil's advocate, right? Mm-hmm. that yes, that's the overall goal, but it isn't as easy to do now as it was back then. Meaning,
right.
like
No, I understand.
there are certain things that are not in place consistently for the kid to get introduced in that kind of natural, relaxed, unpressured way. You know, it just kind of was like, hey, Dad, pick this up. Hey, try this out. Just keep this with you. You know,
Right.
And then gravitate to it. That's the way it should be. But for most of these kids, like most of the kids that I deal with, I just started coaching 11U team. I kind of fell back since before COVID and kind of was working on the business side of it. And I fell out. I stopped coaching, but now I'm coaching 11U team this year, right? The makeup of that team, I would say 60% of the kids on that team, we're a minority team. 60% of those kids are single moms. Moms are, them like they OG moms though. They're not weak. You know what I'm saying? They do it, and there's still a certain part of it that's not quite there. So for some kids, that's totally absent. Some kids are, they go gravitate to football because it's easier, it's cheaper. You can grab a group of them. You know what I mean? They all kind of like grab each other. So the football has the whole. It's the thing that it's the investment with the best return for the amount it costs to play. You dig what I mean?
Yeah, same thing with basketball. With basketball. Minimal investment.
Football is a little different because more kids can play. Like it gives opportunity. Basketball, man, you got to be a really good basketball player nowadays. Even playing, like you got to be pretty good. Like it's not as many just free falling opportunities now. And I think football makes it easier because I know guys on all sides of it. I know guys that are the little league coaches that pick all of the kids up from school, taking the you know what I'm saying? So it's guys that do it, but baseball has some challenges. Like in it too, the sport is like a sport that you have to play to learn. Like playing stickball, when I start, I'm doing a spring break camp. The first thing the kids are gonna do defensively is bare hand drill. Like when you play stickball, when you play, you learn how to use your hands. Your hand-eye coordination develops. Kids like to do things that they're successful at. Okay, this is how I look at the economic part, right? The economics is the biggest issue because it's skilled labor. You have to have somebody who knows how to play the game to teach the game, right? You're not gonna have a very good program if kids not catching the ball, throwing the ball, right? So you gotta put some money into the teaching, the instructor part. And that is what the cost that's the cost that really hurts. That and where you're going to do it, your facility costs. You got transportation costs. You got to get the kids where they want to be because parents are not going to do it when they get off work. Most of these parents are working. Like they're not doing they're not like, I'm blessed. I just kind of I grinded till I got it, but it was a struggle. But for these other parents that are like working regular jobs and, hustling out here, man, when they get off work and they got 1 kid, 2 kids, they're going home. They got to start the process. I got a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. It's a process. So, you got to get them into bed. So being able to commit to these things is tough. You're committing to, when you get inside of it, it sets the parents up to not be able to commit. And then from the lack of commitment, the kid can't get access to it. So it just becomes what's the easiest thing to get access to that's going to be beneficial to the person, to the kid. And football and these other basketball, they're easier because the parent doesn't have to come out of pocket as much. You don't have as big a responsibility on the time, and you can feel good that your kid get an opportunity. Now, from a baseball perspective, we have to have people who have facilities, indoor facilities, 10,000 square feet. We do have to have access to classroom space that's out of the element so they can take a breath or, take a break. They need bathrooms. They need, transfer van to get them to and from different things to the field. So it becomes economics on a lot of different levels. And so the barrier to even some of these other guys expanding what they're doing is, it's not their energy or their effort. It's the reality that quality work is hard to find and it costs, right? And then at the end of the day, you still got to put yourself in a position where financially it's worth the time for you. So it's tough when you don't have a lot of people, a lot of resources there for you to go tap into and say, okay, I need a 10,000 square foot building. Okay, you can get that. Okay, I need a van, 15 passenger van. Okay, I need to take some classes through DCF. It's going to take me about, $1,500. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. these things that give you access to the system, right? I went through that. You know, I took 200 hours of class coursework. My wife didn't. You know, we found a van and haggled the price. We saved up. We built the clientele. Like, it's a process. And once you get to the point where you're on that stage, where you're that, you know, the African American coach, you need resources because your heart is good. You know what I'm saying? You out there giving the time, but you need things to show yourself on the same level. You do, because it's all a numbers game when you get to that level. Those big organizations have bigger teams because they got more trophies. But from the beginning, I'm gonna tell you how I look at it. They had $10,000 of capital to front the uniforms, to
I understand what you're saying.
Get the ball rolling, right?
Because you're management of a business, and that might be your expertise. You're a ball player, you know. But nobody's there to manage it. Going through 3 or 4 different uniform people, just the little things. So there's so many layers to the game now. So my philosophy is, like, guys like you, I know I'm committed to it. You know, and that's why I took my 11U team. Like, I could have coached anybody. I got kids in my program that are multicultural, right? So it's not just that, but when it came to me, I was like, you know what, man, I really want to impact a group of kids right now that are a minority. I want to get that contribution to it. And it takes a lot of people moving in the same direction. And it takes resources, you know what I mean? It does. It takes a lot. But there are resources and things you can tap into to where a lot of it could get, you know, covered. And it's not something that's, like me, I looked up one day, the pandemic hit us and we had to kind of pivot, you know? And then once that pivot happened, I realized, like, okay, parents wouldn't pay me $300 a month anymore for unlimited lessons and the group lessons, but they pay $75 a week for after school care. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, because they gotta have somebody pick their kid up after school. You dig what I'm saying? And that was opportunity to kind of start putting something in place that's consistent. And then by the time the parent get there, the kid homework done, they're ready to go. So it's quick. The parents almost like the kid goes out there, does well. People asking where they play, you know, where they learn, because they've been with these kids and they've seen these kids not do well, you know. So, but it's a process, an organic process, but it's a way where you can sustain it, because the tough thing about baseball is, you know, these travel ball parents are, as soon as they start playing well, you don't see them. They stop training, you know, they playing, and then all of a sudden they start doing bad, they come back. You know, it's just,
well, we see that all the time.
And I'm not saying the kid doesn't need it. I'm not saying that it should be money-based, but I'm saying that there should be a system in place for the kid to maintain development. You know, when a kid comes back to you, you always have to start back over and fix something. You're wasting time. Yeah. You're wasting elemental time. And so those things matter too. Like, for me, like, you know, outside of the kids that I just kind of come in and we just help from our nonprofit side, there's certain things that have to be in place for a kid to come into our program, because I want to have a success rate. Now, it's not about, as EJ said, the best kids. It's not about best kids at all. It's just about understanding that when you come in here, we got a standard, right? We're going to work. We're going to have a good attitude. We're going to keep it amongst ourselves. We're not going to be telling your parents. You know, we're building young men and young women, but it also takes consistency. Our program is 3 to 5 days a week because it's after school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you can kind of create the environment you need, but it takes resources. It took us a couple of years to kind of get everything, you know, stabilized and, you know, everything to learn the system, but it's definitely worth it. And I think people should look at not just that, but other ways. Like, there are some opportunities in the telehealth area to kind of come in and offer opportunities for kids to get help too, you know, from a Medicaid side, if kids have access to that. Because I'm speaking from those perspectives, because those are income-based programs, you know what I mean? And those income-based programs, as kids that aren't on income-based programs, they gonna get the help, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But the kids on those programs have no access. They have zero opportunity, zero exposure, because they just can't even if their parent had the money, they couldn't get them there. You know what I'm saying? Because they're working.
Because they're working.
You know, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you know, it goes back to this, and Aaron and I see this a lot, JP. You know, and I've said this for years. I've been in this game now for 30 years with Aaron. And the one thing we say is it starts at home. and I will always say this, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. It starts at home about parenting, about telling your kids what's right and what's wrong, being consistent, showing up. And it starts there. I think our problem is based on home, being at home and what's right and what's wrong. And I think from there, we can get these young people to where they need to be. Parenting is huge. And Aaron and I always said this about when we were growing up, we were neighborhood kids. We went out and we played together. And we don't have the access anymore because of, one is that everybody's worried about their kid getting kidnapped or whatever. And we knew when the lights came on, it's time to go home, you know, and that's different now. And I think the plight of us playing baseball is based on there's no after school programs. Well, there's no school programs. Like when I was growing up, and Aaron can attest to this because we're about the same age, is that, you know, we had PE, we had physical fitness, we had all that stuff that exposed us to sport, to baseball, to softball, to all these things. And that's how we found out the love of the game. And then, you know, you go get your glove, like he was talking about. I got mine at the Oakland A's game and glove day, and you bring it to school and you brought your ball and you played catch after school with your buddy on the blacktop. Okay. That's missing now. And that's why we don't have a love for the game anymore, because those programs are gone. And now, like you said, JP, and Aaron probably would attest to this, it's pay to play. You know, it's pay to play now. And you know, that's we need to rethink about all that stuff again.
I think, you know, you're really talking, because again, I'm looking globally. I'm not just, I think the answer might be a multi-pronged approach, because you've got access issues for rural kids.
Yep.
You know, we got access issues and economic issues for urban kids and even suburban kids. You just can't assume that a kid lives in the suburbs and he's going to have access to baseball. So I think
absolutely not, because their parents are working too. I mean,
exactly.
You know what
I mean? And so it's economics, like you said, it's accessibility, which to me is, you know, logistics. And so it's probably going to be 3 different answers for 3 different environments. And so my thing is, I just want to see kids playing baseball. It's not about, you know, are they going to get a scholarship? Are they going to, you know, go to the pros? My thing is, I want to see more African-American kids playing baseball, because I think once they play the sport, like any other sport, and they learn to appreciate it, that other stuff follows. So to me, it's like, how do we get just that basic,
first
step going?
I think, you know, honestly, and I want to make 2 points real quick. One, maybe this is a whole nother conversation, but the whole concept of now how they basically outsource, you know, our talent to the Dominican Republic. You know what I'm saying? Like, because at the end of the day, like if they put resources into it, meaning in a major league, if they put resources into it in the inner city, the kids will develop. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'm saying there's a whole nother leg of the spider that says, okay, they got mad that they had to start paying all this money for their talent. You know what I mean? They didn't need it to be the bulk of the talent, but they wanted to make up a certain amount of the talent. And they just started, basically, the players that were playing in the 70s are no longer, now they just get those guys from the Dominican Republic. You know what I'm saying? Or foreign places. So that's a concept in and itself, how it is a very, very calculated kind of decision. You know what I mean? I would love to hear you guys' opinion on it one day, about like Curt Flood and his role in that, and how now they're like, you know what, man, we're not gonna be put in a position where the talent like in the NBA, like in the NFL, basically, but talent has such a stranglehold on the game that, and I think that has, and I'm saying that to say that I think that has affected the growth rate of African, of our participation to a degree, because look at the resources that the major leagues themselves invest in Dominican academies and these things. What if a third of that was put into running which is my next point, a rec park in all inner cities? Like, there's no rec parks.
Right.
Like,
and that's what I'm getting at. That's
Yeah.
what I'm getting at. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
And so those things are kind of like interconnected, because it's only, okay, so it's either programs like, mine that are after school that get you, or there's a rec park that's close to the house where parents can get to.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
Exactly. And so the way I look at it is the major leagues going over to the third world country and putting whole facilities where these kids live, and they live on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, I get exactly what you're saying, because if they can outsource it and they can control the talent pool and they can control their costs on that, and they can control ultimately, that ultimate dollar that they're going to pay for that athlete, they're going to do it. It's a business. I mean, not to just bash Major League Baseball, because they are doing some programs. They've got the RBI program. They've got
absolutely.
But on a broader scale, maybe those dollars should be better spent at the community level than just at these laser pointed talent development level.
Exactly.
That's my would be my preference.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, spread those dollars out further to touch more athletes.
Everybody's opportunity, but I just think that, look, I played at the rec park when I was a kid. It was probably 5 minutes from the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I did too.
All-star, the whole nine. You know what I mean? Home runs, presented on the mound, snow cones. It was the greatest experience. But I remember at 13, I went to play travel ball, and I just remember how starkly different they were. And both were fun, but one just didn't give me that security. You know what I mean? Right? Where I was, she could drop me off and come back and get me. I've been playing all day, so if you don't have baseball near where these kids live, and travel ball takes that out of it, because everything is like a movement type of thing, an event. You got to have an event to get every kid there. You know what I mean? Like it's just a whole thing, man. And it's unfortunate, because there are a lot of kids that are missing out on opportunity because these rec parks are not flourishing. You know what I mean?
Well,
I mean, take it from a former park and rec director. That was my first job out of college, so I know exactly what you're talking about, and that stuff is non-existent.
It's non-existent now, and this is what happened in this industry, as I started in it. When you had travel ball teams, you had the best teams. You had the best players playing somewhere. When I was growing up, it was Little League. Little League was where all the players played. It didn't cost as much. People could play Little League. If you couldn't afford it, Little League had the ability to help you afford it. So it was accessible to everybody. Okay. Second thing, when travel ball started, that stopped, because now it's okay. I'm gonna take the best players from the league, or I'm gonna take the best players from this organization, go make a team. Then the average player says, I want to go, or the average father says, I want to go make my own team. So travel ball became just watered down, and it has been. Now you have all these teams, and it's all about, hey, can you pay the fee to play in the tournament? And people don't have that. People don't have all that anymore. They don't have that. So those things have changed the game, baseball as we know it today, on every level. Because at Major League Baseball, they said, travel ball, let's go make our own travel ball. Let's go take a facility and make it over here and build these players here to build at the higher level. The problem is down to the grassroots. How do we get kids back on the field to play for the love of the game instead of for the dollar of the game? And how can we as adults help facilitate that and make it accessible for all people? Because like Aaron, I agree with you. It is a holistic, it's a global thing. from the suburbs to the country to the urban, suburbia, everywhere. There needs to be access for kids, our kids, to be able to play the game. And that's where we really have to build this on and figure out how do we do that. And, you know, programs like yours, JP, is the start of it. You know, you're providing that for those kids in Central Florida that may not have access to what we deem travel ball. Travel ball is just travel ball. It's by the way, it's just baseball. I don't think it should be called travel. It's just baseball at this point. But you know, again, it goes back to that.
I really think, you know, the whole concept, you know, that these parents, you know, pretty much put themselves in a position where they're manipulated. You just look at the totality of it. I agree with you. I think the system itself has just been created. It's a money grab. You know what I mean? Like it all turns. And the kids are the ones left in the wing. I think another thing that would really kind of improve activity is more player accessibility. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the guys the guys that didn't make as much were more accessible.
And that,
you know,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just feel that way. I feel that if players were more accessible, if they came and they did events and they tried to, if they did it, it would mean so much to the kids. They would now find a hero. You know, like they would find that they look up to. Like I would check Griffey's stats every night. You know what I'm saying? You know, it was just one of those things, and I just don't think kids have that idol in baseball. You know, and some of it is Barry. You know, maybe Barry Bonds wasn't the most accessible guy. I'm not saying he has to be, or he should be, or he should be made to, but I just think it when guys sign autographs, it means something. When guys go out of their way to help people and kids, it means something. And I think that maybe the money affects how their time. Not that they won't do it, but just that the time is so structured and rigid now.
Yeah. And that's, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't want to cut you off.
I just think that kind of affects it also. You know, like the basketball players are really accessible. So, but that's another point that I wanted to raise.
No, and that was something I wanted to actually go into as well as, you know, I think there needs to be changes on the promotion of the sport. And like you said, again, going back to my frame of reference, I grew up with heroes. I wanted to be Gary Templeton. And if I was on the mound, I wanted to be J.R. Richard, you know? You know what I'm saying? Or Vida Blue, you know, those sorts of things. Never wanted to be Hank Aaron, even though my name is Aaron. I wasn't big on home runs, but no, I think there needs to be promotion of the sport at all levels. And I know the onus is kind of put on Major League Baseball to do that. And I think, that's probably the biggest driver and has the most horsepower. And hopefully with these young guys who are now coming up, baseball looks at that as an opportunity and will do that. Because again, they're like the NFL. It all comes down to dollars. And if they can put more black butts in the seats and eyes on the TV, they're probably gonna do it. If it's in their best interest, just from a dollars and cents, because it's an uncaptured audience. But there also needs to be that same promotion going on at the high school and college levels. I mean, really, how much college level baseball promotion do you see? Unless you're an enthusiast, you don't see anything on it.
No, you don't see
zero.
Yeah.
Zero. Is zero. ESPN has put out the College World Series, but it comes down to this: these college leagues have their own network TVs, network contracts. I mean, who sees that? I mean, who sees SEC baseball or Pac-12 baseball? If you don't know about it, you don't see it, period. You don't see it. People don't know about that, by the way. Oh, I didn't know they had a network.
Jefferson
Pilot. The Big 12 had a network, but it's not accessible to everyone.
And aren't those pay channels in most cases?
Those are all pay channels. They're not accessible.
The Jefferson Pilot. it always came up. And I will tell you this, honestly, being a kid from Mississippi that came up, like a couple of things really kind of resonated with me. Watching the March Madness, that different.
Yes.
Watching how the games went down in the players' last game. And then also watching those SEC baseball games on a Sunday. That's usually when I used to catch them. Like watching these guys, you know, that are going to play in the major leagues, it hit me because I started knowing those guys. Because these guys from my town, Jackson, that went to Ole Miss or Mississippi State, you know, Southern Miss. And it really resonated with me that, oh man, like when I started having success, I was like, man, I'm good as that guy. I struck him out. Stephen Head, SEC Player of the Year. You know what I mean? So, and it's not accessible. It is 100% not. You know, my mom, you know, we're in a better position, and I had access to it. But I have friends that didn't, you know. So you're right. They all pay channels. Yep.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, you know, you talk about Major League Baseball only has 7.2% African-American participation. College baseball is way less. We're talking, you know, 3%, 2%.
Yeah.
You know, very, very, very low. It's one of the best things that has happened was the draft last year. One is those kids were going to go to college, going to go to major colleges to play baseball if they weren't drafted. Now, young African-American kids see that and say, hey, this kid was going to go and play in college too? No, I didn't know about college baseball. Oh, you can do that too? That now becomes a reality. And, you know, college baseball, Major League Baseball could have played on that a little bit more and made that more accessible that way. So,
well, I think one hopeful spot is, and you know me, I'm not a big social media fan, but I think with social media, that can be a driving tool for athletes to just not wait on Major League Baseball and get their own selves out there. They're not naming, like in basketball, they're naming shoes after basketball players, and you don't see that in baseball. And there's not the familiarity because you don't see these guys with the frequency. But, you know, God, it just kills me. Someone like Mookie Betts.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's like the guy's a walking commercial, you know?
The walking commercial.
And someone hasn't grabbed him up. We should be seeing him, you know, selling aftershave and Old Spice, just like, come on, Terry Crews.
What about his career is almost over? You know what I mean? Like Andrew McCutchen he's probably a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? He got an outside shot. So you're talking about guys, and Mookie's the same way, man. You're right.
Yeah.
But it's just also us, you know, and I think one big difference, and I was kind of discussing this with somebody else the other day, is now everything is more you do it yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
So many more channels now for you, which is a good thing, but you know, just like even 15 years ago, people weren't doing that. Like, you had access to just put yourself out. So now I think the mindset is like, you have to do so much more on your own that sometimes people just don't want to do it. You know, where it is opportunity, other people see it as, I don't need to do that. What am I doing that for?
Yeah.
You know, like, I think it's unfortunate because I agree with you. Like, these kids are on this TikTok, they're on this Facebook, they're on this Instagram, and all you got to do is have somebody film a batting session, and that's one batting session would be 1 million. You know, you could turn that into however many posts you wanted to. You know what I mean? Like, just
right.
But you know, some people just don't really see the need to do certain things. And it's like Deion. Like, this is another point with Deion. Like, it's rare that you see a guy at Deion's achievement level come down and coach.
Right.
You know? Like, to have that influence. You know, so of course it's gonna have an impact, but you just normally don't see it. So I think that the guy wants, like the Mookie Betts, who should put out all of the posts and all of this, he's just like, man, they paying me.
I get it. There's probably maybe a lack of incentive, but also maybe it's the structure of baseball itself, because baseball really prides itself on its culture and its tradition. And some of that smacks in the face of how, you know, people of color like to play the game.
Yeah.
and so maybe there's some guide rails there that, you know, baseball players maybe don't feel comfortable crossing over wondering what the ramifications might be because, they clutched the pearls just because the guy did a backflip, a couple years ago. And it's like, okay, do I offend? What I'm going to do if going to offend the wrong, the current,
because you got to
fan base, but it's at the expense of attracting the fan base that's culturally more responsive to what I do.
Right. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? It is, and that's a very, very good take on it. And just the box that guys have to fit in when they get there. You know what I mean? Just have to contemplate that. To be that aware of your movements, like to not be able to have a human and natural reaction to failure. It's a lot, man. It's a lot. When you say that, it makes me think about a lot.
And that kind of goes into some of what we talk about when we talk about the social barriers, not seeing people who are more like you and those sorts of things where kids might might say, hey, you know what? I don't want to deal with all that. Because you know what? One of the things that we tell kids is, sometimes you got to cut your hair.
Yes.
You know what that means, in the Black community, that's part of, our expression. And even something like that, just to kind of, and I hate to say the word conform, but to make the path a little bit easier for you. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, look,
for the baseball, kids are like, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to play football because they're going to let 9-inch dreads hang from my helmet. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, or basketball is something where I could do anything. And that's just one aspect of it. But still, that's that kind of thing that is going to make kids say, hey, you know what? I can't really be me.
If I don't,
then I'm gonna screw it. I ain't gonna play this sport.
I'll tell you where it really plays a part. I think that's another very valid point. The effect it has is on the masses, but the problem is college baseball sends mixed messages, right? Like or baseball in general, because they accept it from some people on certain levels. But the people on the lower levels don't understand the terms in which it's accepted. So they look at it like take it as a whole, take it or leave it type of bag. When it's like, okay, listen, when you going in, you want to present yourself uniformly to not have anything held against you, so you can go out there in fair shake. But once you start to accumulate leverage or standing, then you start to express yourself in other ways. You know what I mean?
Right.
But no one really looks at it like that. It's like, because I guess I've seen Tennessee, I've seen all of these SEC schools have, minority kids with dreads. So to a kid, it's like, but now to get into Arkansas State, the coach might not go for it. It might be more old school. Right. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And kids are completely turned off because they're like, oh man, they're not being fair. Like some guys get to do it, some guys don't get to do it. Because each kid is in their own mind, they're immature. They're not as mature as they're gonna be, right? So to make these silly conclusions without having guidance and direction. Like easy. I had to cut my hair going in. I had, my senior year, I went through this thing, I grew braids. And then like, hey, coach said, hey man, got cut. I was like, all right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So
I wasn't attached to it, but it's like these kids are now starting to kind of like associate personality and, they're asserting themselves as a generation kind of like. And it's becoming like a tug of war. I see it with a lot of kids, especially down here in Florida, man. That's all you see. Like no one cuts their hair and brushes it anymore, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when in Rome, right? But at the same time, I tell my guys, look, man, when I send a guy to a guy, he gonna come in and just blend in. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't want people asking where you come from, like just get in there and show what you can do first. You know?
Right. Yeah.
But a lot of people don't. They let them believe what they want, and they think that, but it has a big effect.
I'm gonna say this, JP. When you made your decision to get rid of your braids, what conclusion did you get? Was that on yourself? Your mom talked to you? What?
It just was me, like looking at it, like I knew what my investment. I'm from Mississippi, so what I mean by that is, it's harder for me to forget where I'm from. You know what I'm saying? Just because of a lot of that associate with it on top of what I experienced making it in and out. It's just like you guys know where you're from. It's no different. But I knew my mom, I wasn't gonna have no conversation with my mom about my scholarship. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you talking to me about what? They told you gotta cut your hair or you don't get a scholarship? Well, what's there to talk about? So, and I knew that, and that's how I thought, because like I wanted an opportunity out. I wanted my shot, and I was in control of my shot. And it wasn't a talent, it wasn't this and that. They just said, hey, when you come in here, you gotta be clean cut. They didn't even hold it against me that I had braids. They just said, hey, when you come in here, we want you to, we want you to, we need you to do like everybody else, and to be on the team. That made sense to me. Like, okay, you're on college team, so college coach wants me to. That's what I should do, So, but I've dealt with kids. I had a kid. This kid was tremendously talented. Kid ran a 6'4", 60 outfielder, switch hit. Kid just refused to cut his hair. Ended up going to small JUCO in Mississippi, and just never got pushed to develop. And it's all because of this, like, I don't know, man. I can't relate to it. I'm not like personally attached to my hair,
I'm gonna call it home training. I tell you, I go back to this. I'm old school. I'll tell you, being in a family, your parents have a major impact on it, whether it's a single parent or two parents. That's to a lot of that sometimes. But sometimes maybe your single parent is not that good, and they need a mentor, and a mentor is huge.
Speaking of mentors, then we also got to look at what's the percentage of Black coaches, again, not just in Major League Baseball, but in probably, to me, the more critical areas of high school baseball and then college. Because it seems to me that there's kind of this bottleneck at the collegiate level of head Black coaches. In other words, the funnel gets narrower as you go up versus getting wider.
Absolutely.
And I don't know why that is. Every former player doesn't have to become a coach, but it just seems as though when you have more Black coaches, they're going to be able to attract those kids, like Coach Dion. He's going to attract kids from all walks of life, but he's also going to attract those all sorts of African American kids, and so I think when you don't have those coaches in some of those pivotal points, the kids can't really move on, because again, there still has to be that relatability factor.
Another great point. And I think my opinion on that is baseball is corporate. It's like corporate America. Mm-hmm. Look at the actual movement inside of like this system. And I mean the system from like taking a kid who's got the opportunity, who's got talent, to like making $6 million in the draft, right? And then getting drafted, or not even that much, just getting drafted, right? To go, because you got to put the same time in as the kid that's get drafted in the 10th, 15th round, got to put the same time in as the first round draft. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no breaks as you go down the ladder, So there's this overwhelming like feeling of like, how do you survive that? Like, it's a very, very, very tough thing to kind of navigate, and it's tough on guys. It's tough because it's like being in an environment where you're up against it. You're the only person like you. Nothing is your favor unless you had somebody who played, or somebody somebody in the organization and drafted you high. They want to change the swing, like from the playing the game perspective. And there's a bunch of bad narratives out there from players' perspective. You dig what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, when you see like Dwight Goodson play basketball, what was the man? The guy who played for the Yankees. Darryl Strawberry's son playing basketball. That's something that's close to the game. That's trauma. Like, there's something was there that drove that kid away, right? Yeah. And I think some of this stuff there's not a good narrative around the experience that African Americans have when they play the game. Jack was how old when he passed? Like, come on, let's be honest. Let's look at the overall impact it has on the person. Just the experience, and are the experiences. Man, I was watching almost got me upset. I was watching something, and Tim, what's the shortstop for the White Sox? Tim Anderson.
Tim Anderson
Said something about, it wasn't Joey Votto. I don't want to call the wrong guy's name, but some player made some kind of statement to him, man, and it was just really out of pocket.
Josh Donaldson,
man, and it got me upset just having to understand how I have to maneuver and conduct myself, and then you put me in a position where I have to even like get emotional about something like that. Like that's terrible of a person on that level to talk to you like that, and you know what I mean? Like. And that is a negative. Like, I wouldn't want to experience that. You know what I mean? But it happens every day in that environment and other environments too. And I just think that sometimes, like, baseball, you assume, for a while, you just assume that at the end of the day, there's going to be some negative political dealings with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No baseball comes with baggage.
Yeah. There's
Right.
There's going to be some friction it's not a completely unhostile environment. And and I guess kids pick up on that. And that's the rap that baseball probably has. Yeah.
And look, they pick it up on the Little League. I'm going to tell you some of the worst interactions I've seen have been when I was playing travel ball at these tournaments. You go to so many of them, you see some really, really bad, activity, attitudes and activity from parents, coaches. Like it's bad sometimes, you know what I mean? And that drives kids away. So there's a lot of things and then kids don't get the opportunity. That's another thing. Like, kids not getting a chance to play, kid in rec ball, not getting a chance to play, don't develop, tries out for the high school team, but just doesn't make the high school team. Like, it all matters, man. And no one is really focused on the totality of the problem. So a lot of it just kind of goes, we just push it past the radar like it's not important. But all of it matters. All of it matters. When you're talking about getting kids in the game, being healthy, developing, learning, and even if they don't play, finding a way to still love the game, that's tough. It's hard for us. It's definitely hard for us. It's tough to navigate. You know what I mean? It's really tough to navigate. And there should be people out there like you guys that create energy and talk around it, because a lot of the young guys, we don't know. We just play ball too. You know what I mean? We don't know. Like, a lot of things that I've done, it's just because I knew there were guys like you guys out there, and I said, man, let me put my energy into it in a positive way, and let's see how far I can get with it, right? And you just kind of do it because you enjoy it, but you got that enjoyment out of it. Most kids now, when they start playing, it's for a reason. Mm-hmm. It's not, hey, let's go out.
Yeah. No. Those enticements don't seem to be as strong with baseball as they do with the other sports. And that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And that's why we talked about this today.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is going to be. I don't even really know how we're going to measure that progress, but
I think they're doing a lot of good things. Hank Aaron EDI down here in Florida, they do the breakthrough series. They're doing thing. I know some of the guys, Chip Lawrence, some of the other guys that are, actually spearheading that. So it's a lot of great things being done. But those kids that are making it or breaking through, those kids were already on track. Now it's about reaching back and affecting the ones who haven't got on track yet. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I agree wholeheartedly with both, with everything you guys said today. And I am in the trenches, and I feel like, man, if people had this mindset, just the actual positive thought conversation on it, a lot would change. But so many people are like submersed in it, and they can't really see it.
Yeah, I think baseball sometimes, and not just baseball, but a lot of the youth sports nowadays puts parents and athletes in a survival mode. It's like, how can I just get through this? And so a lot of that other stuff kind of falls by the wayside. You just like trying to get to the edge of the pool before you drown.
For sure. Trying to keep up with the Joneses,
Exactly. Yeah. Because it moves so fast, and it's easy to get, caught up in a lot of things instead of being able to step back and take a look at, hey, what's the best thing for me as an athlete and as, and maybe as a family.
And I'll even say this just as a personal thing. Like my son's, he's 15 months, right? You know, he picks up a bat, swings it a little bit. But, you know, my mindset isn't I want him to play travel ball when he's 9 years old, 10 years old. You know what I mean? Me personally, like, I think the kid should develop and play different sports and be a kid and, you know, figure out if that's what he want to spend his time doing. You know, like, it's a big commitment. But I do think that it's good to be exposed to different things. So if you're 11, 12, 13 and you want to pick this up, it's something that you've invested in. Mm-hmm. So I think that we should start introducing things in that manner. So introduce lacrosse to a kid that's a football kid. So when he's 13, 14, if he don't make the high school team, he can go and jump into something that he can still go and compete in. You know what I mean?
No, I agree.
Putting that out, and I think that we need, specifically when you're looking at baseball, we need more black guys on the field, man. I mean, it's just few and far between. Yeah. Like, because we relate to each other differently. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
A black coach is going to think about, man, did this kid eat today? You know, or whatever the circumstances are. Did the kid just rush here and not really have time to gather himself? You know, like, because we've been that kid ripping and running, you know, trying to make it there. So I think at the end of the day, we do need more coaches on the field and more trainers, you know what I mean? Guys that actually impact and interact with the kids themselves. Umpires too. I would like to see more black umpires. But yeah. I think, you know, it's like everything else. We're on the path to doing it. It's just gradual progress. You know what I mean? And the fact that people like you, like me, want kids to keep playing, we're gonna keep pushing it forward. So that's really, you know, at the end of the day, what everybody should kind of take from it is like, hey man, at the end of the day, let's just try to get one more person a day, like pull one more kid in. You know what I mean? Like let's just try to push it forward because it could be worse. You know what I mean? It could be way worse.
Well, there's a resurgence in Northern California baseball with we see more African American kids playing and more coaches on the field, being in the trenches out there watching it, and it's been a long time coming. So that's a positive thing, Aaron and JP, very positive. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
I think we've got to put it to a wrap now. We probably got longer than we said we was going to keep you, man, but I'm sorry about that. But it's a great conversation.
I enjoyed it. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it, man. I really get to sit down and kind of talk, so it was fun. It was really, I enjoyed it a lot. Hope you guys have a good day and just kind of let me know what you guys need me to do.
And for all you guys out there who listened to us today, I want to thank John Paul Reed, number one, JP, as we know him. And if you want to check him out, check out puremomentumsports.com and see what he's doing out there in Central Florida. So really appreciate you coming out. And again, this is Coach EJ, known as The Brand.
And this is Coach Aaron Thigpen, The Source. We'll see you.